Hello there, wrestling fans. Lucas here from Rebellious Noise, and I'm here to talk about Survivor Series. In particular, I'm here to give you my campaign as to what I think needs changing from Survivor Series. Now, as we all know, the WWE are in full swing as we march on to Survivor Series WarGames. Now, the second part of that title is what I'm here to talk about, as I think although it has dominated the event in the last 3 iterations of it, I believe that it is time to retire the WarGames concept. And it's not because I think it needs to be retired full stop. I think it just needs to be retired from the Survivor Series weekend. And here are my many reasons why. As we know, WarGames has been part of the main roster since 2022. Prior to this, it was featured as an NXT TakeOver event, and prior to this, of course, it was featured most famously by WCW and its predecessor, the NWA. Now, I don't have a problem with WarGames per se, although I kind of do, we'll get into that later. But what I do have a problem with is it being on Survivor Series. I think it needs to be its own thing. But we'll get to that very soon. So here is my reasons why I think that they should ditch WarGames and go back to the traditional 4-on-4, 5-on-5 Survivor Series elimination tag team matchup. Point 1. It's quite a simple one, really. It's what the entire pay-per-view is based around. It's the WWE's second most tenured event. It's been running since November 1987, and it was designed to feature these matches. In fact, very few of the early Survivor Series pay-per-views even featured any other match other than the Survivor Series tag team matches. And although it would take a few years until the teams got their kind of corny team names, like the Dream Team and the Colossal Connection, all that kind of stuff, it would still be a heavy feature of the early events. So the Survivor Series 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 matches, or in case of the first one, they had a 10-on-10 tag team Survivor Series contest. It was always the main feature and the main selling point of the pay-per-view. They have teetered from this previously. The 2 most noticeable exceptions are in 1998, they held the Deadly Games tournament to crown the new WWE champion, and in 2002, just a few years later, they held the first ever Elimination Chamber match. But in true fashion, both of these featured elimination or survival elements as a part of their pitch. WarGames doesn't give this. We'll get to that and its kind of problems as we delve through this list. Leading to number 2, in my opinion, and this is where maybe people are going to get the pitchforks, I think the Survivor Series tag team matches are more exciting and they're a better way to develop storylines. I think WarGames matches are just too messy. They're too messy, and they only, in my opinion, should be used for these big feuds. You know, I think it's like, I'd liken it to, like, let's say Chad Gable and Akira Tozawa have a feud. Are you going to put that in a Hell in a Cell? No, you're not. Because you understand that Hell in a Cell is used with blood feuds the same way that WarGames should be used. And I think that having the WarGames element has actually made things less exciting. I think, yeah, you can list off all these spots that have existed throughout the years, but other than that, has there been anything like to rival the excitement that we've seen in previous years, whether it be the WWF versus the Alliance, whether it be Team WWE versus the Authority, Team Bischoff versus Team Stone Cold Steve Austin, where jobs, livelihoods, careers were all on the line in these epic moments. Remember when Kurt Angle came back at the end of the 5-on-5 Team WWF versus Alliance match, and he knocked Stone Cold out of that chair? That kind of reaction, that kind of excitement, I just don't think exists in the WarGames environment. And I think sometimes as well they were used for better storyline development. So obviously there was one year where they did the Raw Survivor Series match. The winning team became general manager for a week, you know, in the month afterwards, and that was a fun way of using the gimmick. As that brings us on to point 3, it's a more organic way to have these inter-brand combinations. I think the Raw vs SmackDown thing was really good. I think that they went maybe too far with some of the stuff, and it was mainly because of other factors as to why I think it was difficult to digest. And I think that main factor came from having the draft take place in September, and they reassign people to brands, and a month later they stick on a red or blue t-shirt and decide that one now matters more than the one that should have been with them a month ago. But I think Raw vs SmackDown, when done right, and had been done right a number of times, including the year that they introduced NXT to the fold, I think it was very entertaining. There's been some very, very good matches come out of that SmackDown vs Raw stuff. I think we cannot forget that. Next point is, the Hell in a Cell problem they had previously, where every June or October, whenever it started to move to, when they had to decide that, okay, we need to give 2 or 3 cell matches to people, it's now just moved to Survivor Series and WarGames, because every kind of late October, early November, the men and women had to pretend to have these little alliances and hate one another to build up to this match that had to take place. And that is no different to the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Now, I think pay-per-view is probably something we need to deep dive into a bit more somewhere else, but I think the problem is, with WarGames and with their 50-50 booking, it dictates that both the men and the women have to have these matches. And on some years, well, I'll be honest, on every year, they've never really been parallel. And I think sadly the women are just the weaker of the options. And this goes on to my next point. Now, I'm not saying women can't have WarGames matches. I'm not saying that they can't have main events. But I feel with WarGames in particular, you need a faction. If you look back at the old NWA and WCW WarGames concept, it exists because of factions like the Four Horsemen. Over the past few years, the WWE have developed a number of factions featuring the men, such as the Bloodline, such as the Judgment Day. But for the women, it's just not been there. And so every year, I find myself watching the women's WarGames matches, just going, it's just 4 women or 5 women that, maybe have some sort of connection. Maybe they've been a tag team match 2 weeks ago, but now are they really going to form an alliance and to take down what? And this is why I just think, you're calling it Survivor Series WarGames. How about you just have one match be the Survivor Series 5-on-5 and the other match be the WarGames match? But I understand with WWE, they like doing the 50-50 booking, and so it leads to where we are at the moment. My next point is the fact that I feel the booking of the match is quite messy, particularly with Crown Jewel in between the 2 pay-per-view. We don't know whether they're going to do Bad Blood again next year, but let's say between the summer pay-per-view and what is now the winter pay-per-view Survivor Series. Crown Jewel is in assistance now on the Raw vs SmackDown champions fighting each other. It just creates a little bit of a mess where who's going to be in the WarGames? Is the WarGames going to feature one champion who then might not be the champion after that? Or is the WarGame be a separate thing, which is what they've kind of done this year, where they have left the, for the men anyway, they've left the WWE champion and the World Heavyweight champion out of this match, for now anyway. And so I feel that going forward, they need to make sure that, hey, how do we book this really so it can make somewhat sense? Because you're either going to have not have your champions in the match so they can feature in Crown Jewel like they've had this year, or you have your champions in the match but then somewhat have Crown Jewel as secondary. Now, my other point really is about the match itself. I feel that WWE, they made a lot of changes to how the match is done versus how WCW and NWA did the match. And now Triple H spoke about how he removed the rope because they already have Hell in a Cell and the Chamber, and they want WarGames to be its own kind of thing. And look, Io Sky jumping off it in the dustbin a few years ago, that was really fun. And there've been some fun moments that have happened, but I just feel it just looks very messy. But look, like I said, I'm not about getting rid of the match completely. I just feel Survivor Series should be about the nostalgia. The same way that the Survivor Series takes place on Thanksgiving weekend, traditionally in the United States. It's that tradition. I think there's still just so many moments that we could see and so many matches where I'm finding myself, it's just frustrating because I think Survivor Series tag matches were always good to showcase individuals as part of them. Much like the WWE used the Royal Rumble and in later years and more recent years, King of the Ring and also the Money in the Bank ladder match to showcase certain talents and what they can do, their abilities. I feel Survivor Series is just great for it. How good would it be this year if they did a shock elimination where Roman Reigns is eliminated by Sikoa and then leaving maybe a 2 or 3 or 4-1 against someone else on his team. But we can't do that because we're dictated. That has to be WarGames, it has to be this mad mess. And for me, I don't know. But yeah, look, let me know what you think. And let's be respectful in the comments. I understand there are a lot of lovers of WarGames and there are a lot of lovers of the traditional Survivor Series matches. How about you comment what your favourite WarGames match is? It could be from the WWE, it could be from NXT, it could be from WCW. And how about you comment on what would be your favourite 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 elimination match they've done in the past. Until next time, I've been Lucas, and those are my thoughts.